Good morning. I'm Karen Graves, and welcome to another edition of At Your Service with you.
Chris Moore, that's me.
I'm excited to be here today because it's going to be our last At Your Service for this year. So we're going to, I guess, end the year on a topic that's not my favorite, but we need to get it out there, right? The white stuff is going to be coming.
Yes, some of it
Surely.
came yesterday.
Some of it came yesterday. We had a little bit of a taste of it.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about how we prepare for cleaning the roads and keeping everybody safe when it comes.
Okay.
And I guess that begins with the other white stuff,
Salt.
salt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about that
So,
because I'm pretty sure that you don't just buy that once the first snowfall comes. So how does that work?
no, we actually we have to estimate how much salt we think we will need for the next winter in March. So in many cases, one winter season isn't over, and we're preparing for the next by getting our estimate for salt out to the contractors, so we can get a bid and have that bid secured for over the summer, and then start taking delivery over the summer and into the fall.
So when you make the estimates, do you try to just go off of like what you used the year before? I mean, what all goes into making an estimate for that?
Well,
The
what
pricing, I guess, it plays a role.
so we don't typically know the pricing until after we've given them the estimate.
Oh, okay.
We give an estimate, then the different salt providers bid on that. So what we do is we look at the data we have. The data I use goes back to about 1992, and the most salt we've used in a winter is 6,500 tons. So what we do is make sure that based on what we have on hand and then what we can purchase gets us to that 6,500 tons.
And is that what we can hold in our salt barns? How many salt barns do we have, by the way?
Two.
Two?
We cannot hold the full 6,500 tons at once,
Okay.
but we don't have to take delivery of it all at once. Typically, what we do is as the barn starts to dwindle a little bit, we use 500-ish tons. We'll order 500 and get it stocked back up. We really don't have much interest in seeing the back of that barn.
Gotcha.
We like to keep it full.
So in a typical snowfall event, how many tons of salt do we typically use?
Well, so you use the word typically
know.
twice,
I know it's not that typical, is it?
and there isn't. There really isn't. We, after the storms, we look at the salt usage and temperature, duration, timing. All those things play into how much salt you need. In many cases, a 4-inch snow that comes and dumps in a couple hours and goes away doesn't take near as much salt as a 2-inch snow that lingers on for 12 hours, and you have to salt and resalt. And then as it gets colder, you need to use more salt or some additive to help the salt along. So temperature plays a role in there.
Okay, so salt is king, but you mentioned additive. It seems like every year around this time, the news talks about some new treatment du jour that's come out that other cities are trying. Do we do anything here in Springfield other than salt, salt brine?
We do an additive. It's the trade name for what is used is called bead heat, but it's just a melting additive that can either be applied to the roadway or added to the salt. We do mix up some brine sometimes, or work with partner agencies to get some. But there's the pre-treatment tends to work better on the interstate, where vehicles are tracking it on top of itself over and over, and they're tracking it on the ramps. If we pre-treat, say, North Limestone Street, and everybody comes home from work and they start turning down all the side streets, it starts to kind of dissipate and just fade off into the side streets, and you don't get it. The other thing you could run into, some of those additives, as things change, as the precipitation starts to fall, they will bring out a little bit of moisture in the pavement. And you need to be careful because, like on the interstate, you don't have stoplights and stop signs.
Okay.
We do. We don't want to bring out moisture in those areas. we like those sorts of things on really steep hills. It can be useful, and our bridges and overpasses.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess other than the salt, the another major component of removal is the equipment that we use to deliver all of the cleaning and plowing and salt delivery. So
Yeah.
what goes into the maintenance for that, and what do you do to gear up when you're getting close to the season?
So, really in September, as early as September, the mechanics in our fleet maintenance group and the drivers start to, we almost lost a mic, and the drivers start to get the trucks ready, and they're doing standard preventive maintenance, oil changes, checking tires, brakes, all of those things, but then also getting the plows and the spreaders mounted on the trucks, making sure things are calibrated. We want to make sure that to the extent possible, when no matter which truck you're in, when you set the dial or push a button for salt to come out, it's a consistent flow.
Okay.
And I noticed some places you'll see like this first storm we just had, there are places where you can drive around and see salt was a little bit heavy. We tend to get that after the first snow or two, because no matter how much energy you put into calibrating those in our shop during the fall, you really don't know until you get the real world application. So we'll be making some adjustments over this week.
That makes sense. So as the temperature drops, does that also affect the performance of the machinery? I would think maybe does it start to work a
It's
little?
got to get really, really cold,
Okay.
but it can. There are hydraulic fluid wants to get thicker, diesel fuel wants to get thicker. Those are problems we don't tend to run into. The more modern equipment gets, the better. There are just things in place to protect from that happening a lot more.
So, I mean, I guess the most significant piece to snow removal is our people.
Absolutely, that is
Right.
salt.
Without our
Salt is
crews.
great. Trucks are great, but without people, the snow doesn't go away.
So how many crew members do we typically use during a snow? There's typically
Typical.
during a snowfall event.
So we have 14 snow routes.
Okay.
So in general, run of the mill 2 or 3 inch storm, we will call in 14 to 15 people to be in the snow plows. And then there will be 1 to 2 supervisors on the street. And there will also be 2 mechanics in the garage to make sure that if a driver comes in, they're able to get the truck serviced and back out on the road.
So, what's like a typical shift during an active snowfall event?
Varies. In many cases, folks will work 12-hour shifts if we're just going around the clock, but so much of it depends on timing. And different drivers have different preferences on when they want to be in the truck. Some like to work after dark when there's less traffic. Some like to work during the day just because there's better visibility. Everybody seems to have their own preference.
Is there a best case scenario for a snowfall event from a timing perspective?
From a timing perspective,
Like is a time snowfall better than an evening or?
I will say the worst case
Okay.
is when it starts about 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. Because even though we have ourselves equipped to attack those early, it is still very hard with all of the morning traffic hitting, to get everything done in a timely manner.
That makes sense. So Val has the looks like the snow plow routes up.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about how you determine what streets are plowed first. There's obviously a method to it.
There is.
Let's talk about that.
So we start off looking at major, what we call arterial streets. If you think of North and South Limestone, Columbia Street, North Street, US 40, the big roads that move people and commerce around our community. We like to work on those first. As we start to work through those, we then go to what we call our secondary or B streets. And those would be streets that help get you out of your neighborhood. Think about Clifton Avenue, Providence, Santa Monica, Broadway, roads that are fairly well traveled, um, from neighborhood streets that get them out to the collector street or to the arterial streets. And then lastly, we work into the neighborhoods. So big streets, smaller streets, then into the neighborhoods. And sometimes there's if it's a school day, that road that has a school on it is going to move up the list a little bit. If it's over Christmas break, we know that one doesn't need the attention as quick. We really make an effort to try to get cleared around schools as quickly as possible.
That makes sense. So we can, you can actually see the snow route maps on our website at springfieldohio.gov/street. Let's talk a little bit about the neighborhoods. So I know that, and especially a significant snowfall, to your point, those roads are going to be serviced last because we need to make sure that the major arteries are moving. So what do people do when they have questions? Like they think, oh, well, maybe my street got missed.
They're welcome to call us because have we missed streets before? Absolutely, we have. It's amazing how many streets are out there when you start realizing you have to hit every single one of them.
Sure.
They're welcome to call. In many cases, we can give them a report back that the driver's in the area. He could be there in the next 2 hours. It may be a case where we have a supervisor drive through there to see if it did get missed, or in some cases we've plowed it and everybody has shoveled a car out and thrown all the snow back in the street.
That's another good point. So what can our residents do to help you with more efficient snow removal?
So to the extent possible, try not to park in the street. And I know that's not possible for all of us. There are cases where we have houses that don't have a driveway or enough driveway. There are some neighborhoods that don't have much off-street parking. That makes it rough. But if you can stay off the street, your road can get so much cleaner. If you do have to park in the street, or when you go to clear your drive, don't throw it back into the street. Put it in the green space, put it in the corners of your driveway. I happen to live in a location where the roadway gets wider and a lot of snow intentionally gets piled in front of my house. And from me shoveling that pile, I will have 2 big mounds of snow next to my driveway in sometime March.
Right.
It doesn't want to go away.
Or compaction. It's
Yeah.
just there until the super thaw.
Yeah.
So 14 routes. That's a lot of streets. Do you know how many streets?
Couldn't even hazard a guess at how many streets we have.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what other information do we need to cover today? I mean, really kind of plowed through this.
See what you did there.
I know.
We're getting a lot roll.
I gotta do that. I deserve that one.
I always like to remind people that please give plow drivers room to work. Those are big trucks. The conditions are less than ideal. There are a lot of flashing lights. In many cases, they're fighting snow and ice on their windshield, their mirrors. Give them space to work. Sometimes to get the road as clear as we all want it, they have to stop and back up, or they have to make turns that are different than you would normally expect. So just stay back, let them do their thing. Be grateful they're out there. And it's weird. I've lived in Ohio my entire life, and when it's snowing like crazy, in many cases it can seem like it's the end of the world and it's going to last forever. We only have about 17 snow events per year. And many of those are like yesterday that aren't super significant. So be patient. Just be patient.
Yeah, it's a good point that you make there, because when we do get a significant one, that's what we remember.
So, it
and
is.
it's coming, and you're prepared. And we're just going to go ahead and end on that note.
Okay.
So thanks so much. And we hope that you join us for our next podcast, A Word with the City Manager. That's coming on Wednesday, January the 10th at 9 a.m. Until then, we hope everyone has a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you next year. Bye.